Two English bands, an Irish band, a Welsh artist, and a Scottish band have their albums discussed on a podcast. This is 5 to 9's Album of the Month episode for September 2025. I'm Andrew Belt, editor of the 5 to 9 blog, and joining me as always are Karl Blakesley of New Music Central and Kiley Larsen, the founder of label Mañana Records, who returned to the fold after being unable to join last month. So how are you doing, fellas?
Doing well, thanks. How about you?
Yeah, we're enjoying the seasonal warmth for November, which is pretty weird. But you know, November and talking about September, we're in a time warp this evening. So
I didn't realize until that intro as well that we've covered the whole of the British Isles and Ireland with this.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that until you said, so that's quite
yeah, it's a slight play on the old jokes of of the British Isles, but very slight. Probably something we shouldn't hark back to.
Yeah.
Northern Ireland not in there, but I suppose it's a fairly good roster on that front. So
We got most of them.
If there was a sixth, I know they would have made it.
there we go. Shame Newcap didn't have one then in September. But so yeah, I mean, before we get into this British and Irish episode, let's go to America. Kiley, I mean, what stood out for you besides these 5 albums in September last month? Or in September?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 2 records, 1 show. For me, the record that I listened to, I think probably more than any of the ones for the podcast, is Jeff Tweedy's latest triple solo record, Twilight Override. I think we've talked about before on the podcast, just a Wilco fan forever. And the more Wilco goes on, a lot of the time I enjoyed Jeff Tweedy's solo outings a little bit more. And Twilight Override is no exception. He recorded it with his 2 sons and then some guest appearances. But I think it's as varied as Jeff Tweedy can be in 2025. It is still pretty laid back. But I think uh, i- seeing him a couple weeks ago, he was promoting it on Stephen Colbert, and I liked that he was talking about the album title that, the twilight can lead to darkness and, feeling like we're in a state of darkness right now. He called it Twilight Override to try to, bring some joy to the dark days. And then the other thing that I enjoyed from that interview was Stephen Colbert asked him why a triple album, and Jeff Tweedy said, it's just another chapter in my long career of giving fans more than what they asked for and more than what they want. So I thought that was pretty good. The other one, we've talked about when it came out. I'm bummed. Nation of Languages, Dance Called Memory, that we're not covering it on this episode. For me, I was kind of mid on the last one, saying that they needed to do a little change up, and I think Dance Called Memory had enough of that for me that I really, really enjoyed that record. And just interesting enough to I would definitely rate it over the last one personally. And then finally, hosted a bunch of great shows in September. I think my favorite though was at the end of the month, local band called Illa Minori. They're a project. Her name is Erica Manzan, and she moved here from Austin last year. But just amazing dream pop. She plays an omnichord. I'm not sure if you guys were familiar with that instrument, but essentially like a keyboard harp combo. And it's something that you don't hear very often, and just having the last year or so, she's kind of switched from making guitar based music to omnichord based music, and it's just so damn dreamy. The rhythm section she has right now, two local guys, are just phenomenal. And that was just I've listened to her recorded stuff and enjoyed it, but the live show was just like, damn, this is really big sounding for three people. So yeah, that was the highlights for September.
Mm. Yeah, not an instrument I've heard of before. So something a little bit different in Santa Fe.
For sure.
Nation of Language, yeah, obviously one we covered in the first year of the pod. I think, yeah, you were probably the most disappointed out of three of us. That was my first, you know, listening experience with them. Really enjoyed it. So that is one I hopefully on the very, very long list of albums to catch up with can get to.
Yeah, you should. It's very good.
Well, there was one of the singles in particular I thought was fantastic as well. So yeah, hopefully, and
I second that. It's good.
But also, I remember from the conversation that you didn't feel there was as much of a change as I did.
No,
So
but I
could have
still
been
like.
good discussion.
Yeah, I still like the last one as well. So
it's one of their songs. I'm not ready for the change or something. I think
Yeah,
you might have
that's
referred to
it,
that.
Yeah.
And we were wanting the change last. Anyway, and Jeff Tweedy, yeah, still a bit of a blank slate. Although the recent stuff I've heard of his, I've quite enjoyed. And again, but a little bit forbidding a three.
You're a father of two. You're required to enjoy it.
That's the vibe. Then I
Yeah.
need to go there. Maybe not the triple album as a starting point, but
Yeah.
we'll
one
see
at
it.
a time.
Yeah.
Indeed. So to Karl, how about your September?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, it's technically 3 gigs, but 2 of those gigs also relate to September albums, so I've kind of doubled up a little bit. So the first one was Lola Young, who I very nearly picked for September. She released her 3rd album with titled "I'm Only Fucking Myself," just over a year after her breakout album. This wasn't meant for you anyway, which was, that was my runner-up album of the year last year. Of course, Messy off that record, one of the biggest singles of the last 12 months, all of which, I predicted years ago. So I get to I get to flex that every time I speak about Lola Young. But yeah, I didn't pick this album for this month as I was slightly. I think I mentioned this to you guys. I was slightly hesitant, coming so soon after that album. It screamed kind of like label cash grab, which didn't sit right with me. But getting to hear the album live a couple of days before it was released, and yeah, I mean, it sounded amazing on the night. There were some real standout tracks like Post Sex Clarity, Can We Ignore It, and then her last single that she released, Spiders, her voice on that song. Yeah, just when she performed it live, just so raw. And then her band on the night, just brilliant as well. So, and I think that really comes through on the record. That it's not just her, it's her band as well. So yeah, really been enjoying that. And then yeah, it's just one of those that it feels a bit bittersweet now, given her recent health troubles since the album release. Which yeah, just goes to show the pressure and strain some of these top artists are under. And I think going from one intense album cycle and festival season straight into another, it's no surprise she had to take a break. So yeah, get well soon, Lola. Hopefully she'll be back soon. And then yeah, my second pick is Caramel by Coach Party, who are they're like a young rock band from Isle of Wight, who I basically got into them off their first EP. Saw them live a couple of times around then, and uh, really took to their live show. But then it was one of those where their debut album came out, and it was a bit underwhelming, if I'm being honest. So after that, they kind of fallen off my radar. And then I saw basically that they were playing an album launch show here, and they were doing free tickets for it. And it was a Monday night, nothing else was on, so it went along to check them out again. Not really expecting too much, and ended up being a little blown away. Think they've really come on as a band since that first record. This one feels like a real step up in terms of the writing, the production, their confidence in, both their songwriting and how they are with their instruments. So yeah, it just a really good 30-minute rock record. And yeah, the song sounded great live too. So yeah, that's one that I've spun a bunch since that show, and definitely recommend checking that out. And then the final highlight for this month, one of my most anticipated gigs of the year, Turnover's Peripheral Vision anniversary show at the Roundhouse in London. Midwest emo classic, one of my favorite records. I've actually probably played it as much this year in anticipation as any year since I discovered it. So, yeah, going in was just like really buzzed to hear that record. One that means so much to me, with a sold out Roundhouse who, it was one of those, everyone else in that room adored those songs as much as I do, and it just like hung in the air for the entire show. From the moment Cutting My Fingers Off started, and me and thousands of other people are just belting out the words to it full lunged. I was just, yeah, it was one of those like immediately just overwhelmed by the emotion of it all. It was a really special moment, and yeah, just a beautiful night. Yeah, Hello Euphoria, Dizzy on the Come Down, all of it was just spectacular. And you'll be pleased to know, Kylie, I even enjoyed the 5 or 6 songs they played that weren't off that album, which,
Yeah.
obviously the album.
Encore. Oh wait, not that encore.
Yeah. So even they sounded okay on the night as well. So it could have been them, it could have been the alcohol, I don't know. But those were my 3 highlights for September.
Yeah, year of introductions to bands with their name beginning with Turnstile as well. When you first said Turnover, that's where my brain went, and before recalibrating.
Yeah.
But I think good year for them,
the
but
bands, but every time I'm turn
yeah, it's, we'll get there eventually. But I think yeah, you guys have mentioned Turnover before, and I think it's like that kind of greeny-ish kind of the guy with long hair on the cover. I think that's where my visual memory goes to with it. I might have listened to one of those after one of these pods or from discussions, at least 1 or 2 tracks. And yeah, Lola Young, yeah, obviously a lot of interest in what she does next and everything, but yeah, it seems right that she takes a break. Yeah, and then the middle one, this I can't believe.
Coach
But
Party.
what you said.
Yeah.
Coach Party, the interesting one, yeah, because I think what you say, like there was a lot of hype about them. What, 2-3 years ago? They played in Reading as well, and I saw them live. Didn't really think too much. Listened to some of the music, and so yeah, they're ones maybe to put back on the radar, based on recommendation, because it didn't seem like they kind of hit that hype from that time. So my one's 3 gigs, 2 of which are bands which we'll be discussing a little later. But I'll begin with the one which isn't, which was the Hives doing their album launch show just down the road from my work here at Alternet. So very convenient. Earlier evening gig as well, even better. And quite short. And sometimes those ones, that's just what you need, really. The album itself doesn't seem like it's one which you need to particularly dive into, to be honest. But which they were launching in the night. We obviously ran through their comeback album from a couple of years ago, which actually I thought was really good. But these new tracks are not quite hitting. But live, and obviously pulling out some of their hits and doing it in quite a snappy and typically well led way, with Pelle Almqvist, who's just hilarious, just has you in the palm of his hand from the moment he comes on stage to the moment he leaves. Just a fantastic show. So probably the highlight of the 3, which is incredibly surprising considering the other 2, which were same venue, Biffy Clyro, similar thing, album launch show for Futique, which we'll go into in a little bit. But yeah, their show was like virtually a full one. It wasn't your shorter one, which I'm glad about, because the price I paid, it would have been a bit cheeky, I think, if they'd have done a the Hives show, and been done in 45 minutes. It was a proper effort, and to be in a room as small as that to see Biffy Clyro was really a privilege, and one of my favorite bands. So there we go. And then final one, Suede at South Bank. So with launching their album, which again we'll discuss in a moment, they've done this residency at the South Bank. I didn't get my first two choices, which would have been midweek, so I went on the weekend, got a pass to go on a weekend, and the Royal Festival Hall, part of the South Bank, which I've never been to before. Incredibly opulent building. We were right up in the gods. So I went with wife's brother-in-law, who, once I played a few of the 90s hits, was like, oh yeah, I know them, I'll go along, kind of thing. So I went in a bit blind on that front from his perspective, but like him, very much enjoyed the show. Great interaction with the crowd from Brett Anderson, sitting in the seats in a few rows out from the front a few times. I kind of wish I was down there, because it definitely felt like that's where the energy was, and I did feel a little bit divorced from that being so high. But yeah, he couldn't fault the effort, and then hearing some of their absolute classics from 30 odd years ago was yeah, very special. So yeah, 3 very good gigs, and that will do it for September, until we get onto the albums, which we'll do now. So just mention them. First up is Futique by Biffy Clyro.
If you want it, we can conquer it all. With a little love, if you're honest, we can defeat them all.
So this was chosen by Adam Reeves, editor of the Dead Good Music blog, and you can keep up to date with Adam's writing by following @deadgoodmusic_ on Instagram. So I've decided to go first out of loyalty to it's Biffy Clyro. I think what's going to follow isn't going to be pretty. So and to be from our discussions, and to be honest, I'm not exactly going to be giving a glowing review myself, but yeah, this was one which, I easily could have picked myself, but I was a little bit nervous about. I think there's certain bands who you feel particularly wedded to, who to bring on maybe at a certain stage of their career, you're just like, oh, this might not go so well. Either way, Adam chose them, so here
It's
we are.
usually album 11 where you can say that.
Sorry.
It's usually album number 11 where you can say that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think this is. I think it was 10. This is 10, or maybe it is 11.
Well, the Biffy heads kind of go. I was reading, kind of go back and forth on it, but either
Really? Okay, I didn't realize that was a debate. I've read about it. It seems in most official things I've read, they refer to it as a 10th. But I suppose they've done a film score in the years. Maybe.
I don't know if it was maybe a remix album or I don't remember.
Okay.
Anyway.
Oh, well, that'll be something to dig into our side.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to jump in. So just so we can get a little bit of a maybe a nicer start to proceedings. But yeah, I've kind of, like I say, it's a bit tough when it's a band who, with the exception of Queens of the Stone Age, possibly my favorite contemporary band, essentially. However, it feels like they are on that sort of downward streak, and all artists have those moments where it's kind of, they've lost that great streak they might have had earlier in their career. Certainly, I feel, they've been a very consistent band, and even up until the 2020 celebrations of Endings, I thought was an absolutely fantastic album, one of my favorites of the decade so far. We then in 2021 had The Myth of the Happily Ever After, which was a bit more disjointed. It felt like the band wanted to go in a rockier place, but it didn't have much form. I felt the music, and maybe that was the stepping stone needed for Simon to then go on to form Empire State Bastard with touring guitarist Mike Venart and I think Dave Lombardi, the Slayer drummer. I think Karl, you kind of like Empire State Bastard, but yeah,
I think
kind
I
of does
listened to a
nothing for
bit,
me.
but yeah, I listened to a bit of them. Obviously, it's a bit more metal,
Screamo.
a bit more screamo.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't say I like it, but it's definitely interesting. It's interesting.
Interesting as a word. I think I
Yeah.
kind of tolerated the single which came out, but then to try and listen to the album was a step too far. And seeing them at Download as well, it's very rare I would leave a set early, but halfway through I was like, no, thank you. So having kind of got out that real screamo side of him, they return as to the mothership, and it feels like they've gone, okay, we've done that. This probably is their poppiest record they've ever done, and yeah, it almost without any edge, which it's probably that mixture of soft poppiness, which there's always been a part of the band, but with that edge, which I've always loved about the band, that it can be combined and you get that kind of contradiction coming together and blended. So yeah, and I think look, I watched a bit of their Glastonbury performance as well, and the crowd as well seemed pretty small for them, so it just feels that they are on this downward trajectory, and it really pains me to say it, but there we go. And so I mentioned to you guys I was enjoying it, actually. I mean, I think as a listening experience, I think it's a good album, but good, compared to the many albums we listen to throughout the year. Doesn't really cut the mustard, and I just feel that there's not really any kind of shining lights, real standout moments, perhaps until the end of the album where it gets a little bit more interesting. But I think one of the things I mentioned to you guys was you get some of those classic good Biffy verses, but the choruses really let a lot of the songs down. I find it really just you sort of get brought to this moment of interest about what the chorus is going to be, and then you get this really generic-y kind of soft chorus which can kind of really take away from where a song is led, and I found that with quite a few of the songs. I mean, Hunting Season is maybe the best example of that. It's also one of the better songs on the album, as is A Little Love, which was the opening track, which didn't quite get me at the time, but it's grown over time. But yeah, I think until you get to Dearest, Amygdala, and Two People in Love, which I think is the strongest part, the last two songs of the album, preceded by 1001, which is one of their worst songs I think they've put to record. Yeah, it's a mixed bag, and ultimately falls well short of their high standards. So one I can quite happily listen to. It's not got that element which I'd turn it off. But yeah, it's below par. Lyrics are a bit naff in places. I think that's something you mentioned, Karl, on the chat, and I agree with. And yeah, just remains solidly good for me. So if that's the high point, then I'm interested to hear your reviews. And yeah, Karl, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out if I'll be nicer or worse than Kiley, but yeah, I mean, I'll start.
Who said they didn't like it?
We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I'd say, yeah, I mean, I'd say going into this, I'm a reasonable Biffy enthusiast. Certainly not, besotted with them, as I know a lot of yourself, Andrew, a lot of people over here are. Obviously, festival headliners for years, and yeah, I know amongst certain rock fans, they would like yourself, say they are the best band around. But yeah, I mean, for me, I wouldn't go that far, but like you, have generally enjoyed their output over the years. I mean, Puzzle is still my favorite of theirs by far, but have enjoyed at least parts of every album since then. I think they're certainly a great singles band, and when I've seen them live, just an outstanding live act as well. However, yeah, with this new album, I'm really struggling to find anything I like about it at all. Every time I listen to it, I can't get past this notion that they just sound like a parody of themselves. I know they've always had like the style and they stick to it, but here it feels like they are leaning into it like so much that it doesn't even sound authentically them anymore. And that's my biggest disappointment, I think, with this album. Aside from that, you touched on it, Andrew. Lyrics are just really cheesy. A Little Love, obviously the lead single and the opening track. Um, yeah, for me that rang alarm bells with the, A Little Love, we can conquer it all. Little love just for everyone. In general, I don't think, I don't think that's a bad message for 2025. But when it's coming out of a rock band in that manner, it feels a bit like, do you remember the Gal Gadot Imagine video that she released during lockdown? And it was meant to make everyone feel better, but it just made them feel worse. That's kind of
Angry.
yeah, that's good. That's kind of what that song does to. That's the vibe I get from it. But yeah, I'd say that's not even the worst offender here. Shot One is again just really cringy, a bit nonsensical as well when you really listen to what he's saying. It's like, I've got the lyrics here: you only get one shot, and that's what makes it serious. Love is all that matters, but it also shatters. If this is love, then I forget what it is. And it's like, if you're just like, what? I'm listening to it at a point, I'm like, what are you talking about here, Simon? It's like,
Yeah, just filling in the blanks.
yeah, did GPT write this for you? I think that, but yeah, it's like overly glossy production on there too. Yeah, just not good. And then Woe Is Me, Woe Is You, and Goodbye. They're probably the two that, like you say, Andrew, like in the verses, they show some promise, start out a bit more broody, a bit more melancholic, but then it gets to the chorus and then they just both completely lose me again. I mean, the chorus on the latter is probably the worst on the album. We believe in the concept, we defy the impossible, we undertook the research, we watched
That
it
line,
play
man.
out. This
The
shit,
research one.
yeah, it's just so clunky. And yeah, it's like a university student trying to hit the word count on their dissertation or something. It's just like it just keeps going. But yeah, I won't go into it anymore, as my feelings every track pretty much the same. But yeah, like you, Andrea, I think Biffy just sound really lost here, and almost like they can't be bothered at times as well. It comes across as, yeah, them phoning it in, churning out maybe a few more sing-alongs for the tour without any of the, the depth that I know that they're capable of putting into their songs. So yeah, big misfire this one for me, and I just hope the next one gets them back on track.
Kylie, what do you have to add to?
Well, I think I was definitely the outsider on this one because Biffy Clyro, to my knowledge, has never even made a drop in the United States. And going back through, I remember only Revolutions. I don't remember How I Came. I don't know if I saw it in NME or something like that. And I remember listening to it when it came out and liking it okay. And then Opposites following that, I remember giving it a spin and just like, I don't know what I was thinking with this last record. It wasn't for me. So, I can comfortably say that those are the two Biffy Clyro albums I've listened to. And so when this got nominated, it's like, just curious what a 10th record from these guys could sound like, or 11th. What But you guys always talk about indie landfill, and this is like the definition of indie landfill to me. Just I know you guys have touched on it, but a little love. I I I know it's about relationships more so than world vibes, but just everything going on right now. With a little love, if you want, we can conquer it all. I was furious when I heard that lyric because it seems so out of touch. Between the world climate and also I guess just where I'm at in life, lyrics about failed relationships do not interest me whatsoever anymore. Um, and then yeah, I would say I don't think we've talked too much about Goodbye, I think is the worst song on the record. Just I understand what they were doing with the sequencing, trying to have banger, quiet, banger, but that one in particular, which I assume is kind of supposed to be the centerpiece of the record. I read that that was the first song written for it. It's like, man, if that's the centerpiece of the record, um, the rest of it is a mess. And yeah, it's between the teenage diary lyrics, the heavier songs. I just kept on thinking of Foo Fighters the last 20 years that I haven't been able to get into so much. It's just a lot of empty butt rock. And then the songs aren't great, and we've talked about it being glossy and poppy, which I don't necessarily have a problem with if it's done right, but the amount of compression on this record, the mix, like it is just a really removing the songs, it's a really ugly album sounding album. And um I could see where if you're a fan of Biffy Clyro that maybe these songs would have connected more live, because everything is just so gated and has no room to breathe. And a lot of the times I think that's just as unforgivable as bad songs. So yeah, just this was I listened to it twice and it was a slog both times.
I can say live they are better.
Yeah. I would imagine
So I can confirm that.
I didn't go as far as looking up who produced and mixed this record because
Mm.
it is what it is, but whoever they are, it's unacceptable that something sounds like this in 2025.
So the band need to get rid of their producer and I think they need to do something new for album 11 or 12. So
Just wait for an anniversary tour whenever.
all good. Right, so a bit of a skewering to start off our 5. But yeah, let's see if it's going to get any better. So our second album is Michelangelo Dying by Cate Larsen.
And then pretend it doesn't matter. It's about time. It's about time. I get a little upset.
This was Kylie's choice, so we're straight back to you.
Yeah, just pulling up my notes again. Yeah, so Cate Larsen, Welsh singer songwriter. I think it was Reward, her 2019 record that I came into, and then enjoyed that. But it was Pompeii in 2022. I think that was a top 5 finish for me that year. Just gorgeous, dream pop, art pop. As someone we've previously talked about on the podcast, I loved that she recorded it in a house owned by Griff Reese, which I thought was really cool. And yeah, I just, one that I grabbed on tape that year and had it on repeat. So, Michelangelo Dying was very excited about. And yeah, I think this is another really good dream pop record. Um, more so into the first half of it or so, with the exception of I love Ride having the legendary John Cale of the Velvet Underground, who's always guest appearing on a lot of cool artist stuff, and it's at his age, it's awesome to have him keep on showing up on these records. Um, briefly, I think this is a lot of the case of what I said about that last Nation of Language record, where we've got the same, uh, same producer. I think a lot of the same musicians joining her in, she, Caleb Bond does vocals, the synths, a lot of the production. She's very self sufficient. I think she's a badass. Um, but yeah, I think Michelangelo Dying, I would just put slightly under Pompeii, just because as someone who's listened to these last three records, she's definitely in a groove, and I think a little more variance on this record. Just maybe two songs that kind of pulled it out of this synthy dream vibe would help it out, because I've listened to this record a bunch, and just there's moments that I'm really into, and then there's a lot of stretches where I've been listening for 10 minutes and haven't absorbed anything that's going on. Uh, so, I would say, as a big fan of hers, just middle of the road. I know critically, it's very acclaimed, which is fair. It's not a bad record, but it's just very samey for 43 minutes. And so, yeah, it's all right.
So yeah, we're moving up from where we were with the last record. So by saying it's all right, Karl, is Michelangelo, yeah, Dying, is it all right for you, or is it a bit better, bit worse?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fairly familiar with Kate's output. I think kind of you might have put me onto that Pompeii record, but I know obviously over the years as well, I've done a few, guest features with the likes of, Griff Freesia that you mentioned, Griff, not Gruff, as well. I almost said Gruff. Uh, St. Vincent, obviously produced Boy from Michigan, the John Grant record from a couple of years ago, which I obviously really loved. And then, yeah, like you say, with her own work, Reward and Pompeii, it was either through yourself, Kylie, or from the critical praise that both of those records received. Really enjoyed both of those records at the time. I don't think either made my year-end list, but yeah, certainly records that I've enjoyed at the time, even though I've not revisited since. And yeah, I think with Michelangelo Dying, I think it kind of follows the same path as those records where, I enjoy both of them, but I can't see me necessarily returning to them or captivated enough that I'm going to play it a lot. Which, unlike you, Kylie, it's a breakup record, and I usually love a a heartbreak album. Um, so yeah, it's one of those that, yeah, it should tick a lot of boxes for me, but it's one of those that, is pleasant enough to listen to, but yeah, there's just not too much here that I find myself really drawn to revisit over and over. It does have those shimmering dream pop flourishes throughout, which I always love, and there's some very high points on here, like Mothers of Riches, About Time. Really love those tracks. But yeah, almost similar to you, Kylie, when I'm listening to it front to back, it does end up feeling like a long 43 minutes. It's, yeah, single paced and samey, you mentioned, and I definitely agree with that. I think the biggest culprit for me is it worth it? Happy Birthday. I'm sure for some, yeah, that'll be a highlight. But for me, yeah, it's a 6-minute track that just seems to go on forever. But yeah, I think it's one of those that maybe is like easy to admire, hard to love. I definitely can appreciate Kate's artistry. Um, you mentioned as well, her production work here is just, it frequently sounds, magnificent. When you're listening to it on your headphones, even if it's not always, even if it's not always interesting or captivating, it always sounds, well made. So, yeah, as I always say, you can love an objectively bad record and then not enjoy an objectively good record. I think this one sort of almost falls into the latter, but I think it's one of those that, yeah, pleasant overall, but yeah, maybe not one I'll go back to.
Yeah, I seem to think I've listened to a record of hers because of Mercury Prize nomination from, it was the one before Pompeii, which I think received Mercury nomination. But yeah, don't recall kind of any particular song or kind of aspect of it, maybe apart from the cover art, which is always quite memorable with Cate Le Bon's albums, but haven't really delved too much. So yeah, being half Welsh and being brought the sound of Wales from our man in Santa Fe is a good opportunity to sort of give her a good go in full album basically. And it's interesting you say about John Grant as well, that she's worked with him, because that's probably out of the ones we've covered on this pod. Was it The Art of the Lie? Was that the name of his last one? This one reminded me of that in the heavy synth and low percussion output, and just how it's an album you can sort of sink into. I think this one, which could be quite lovely, albeit some tracks are quite forgettable, I suppose. But unlike you, Karl, had the Happy Birthday one was probably my highlight. I think probably from the first few listens, it was the one which stuck. I think you have the first few tracks and I enjoy them, but you don't have that sort of memorability with it. Whereas that one I enjoyed, and maybe because it is 6 minutes of kind of banging the drum with a very catchy chorus. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I think she's a very good lyricist, and that really comes through here on this tightly cohesive kind of storyline, where she's sort of picking the pieces of this broken relationship of hers, and yeah, she doesn't let go of that focus thematically, lyrically as well. But yeah, I think it ends very, very strongly after quite a few tracks where it's a mixed bag, similar to what I was saying with Biffy. But yeah, Ride with John Cale, repetitive but engaging. Enjoy the kind of saxophone moment in the bridge. It's a wry look back at the relationship, and a real high point on this record. And then the closing track, I Know What's Nice, kind of ends on a bit of a more a cheerier note, a bit cathartic, honest. I think this is a brave album to really put everything on the line as she does here. I think it's a cohesive one. It could do with a few more hits and certainly a bit more variety, I think, as you both alluded to. But as an introduction to Cate Le Bon as an artist, one I really enjoyed. Albeit one that I won't sort of rush to listen back to as much as a lot of other ones we've talked about on the pod this year. So yeah, probably meeting a little bit in the middle, similar to what you've said as well. So we're slowly going up from a bad start on this pod. And we move on to our middle album. Third is Pain to Power by Maruja.
My body is a shell, so why so much division? Is the joy left all our heads? Maybe it's the fear of having no one in our beds. It's empowering to think that all the hateful people out there, if they were only shown more love.
So this was my pick, which is a bit of a I felt like I was sort of what do they say about like being down with the kids by picking this album essentially. So definitely got that meme of is it joke
Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi. Yeah. That was me when I was like considering this as an album pick for the pod. And also I think we often, like the last few years, we've had in the early part of the year that debut album, the big debut album. This year, Divorce, we went with, which generally well received. We had what was the one with Lucy Dacus and Phoebe Bridges. We had Boy Genius the year before, and then or sorry, 2023, and last year, The Last Dinner Party. We've had those ones. It's always been earlier in the year, but it was just interesting that we had this sort of big debut one where there's a lot of hype coming, so deep into the year, and they just seemed a very intriguing proposition. I kind of went into it with that level of intrigue. Do I like this? I don't know. Who was kind of where I was kind of coming from with it. This is a band from Manchester who seem to take elements of like new metal, as they have, is it a saxophonist in the band as well, which features very
It's an understatement.
features very prominently. So so you got this, it's kind of different in that sense. On that side of it, I'm thinking Black Country New Road, and then the metal side of it, I'm thinking Rage Against the Machine, and meeting somewhere in the middle. And then sort of thematically, I suppose, they can join the likes of Bob Vylan and Kneecap perhaps with taking on, big social issues and writing their views on it. And quite a galvanizing effect, and they seem to be really sort of building up. So I think they're essentially an exciting band. I think they're one who, if they're on a bill live, you shouldn't hesitate to see, that's for sure. And then you go into this album, 9 tracks. I think 3 approach about 10 minutes. And when it hits. I mean, the one of the singles for me is probably the song of the year so far, which is Look Down on Us. That is just epic. Begins with this real nefarious bass, and it's just this atmosphere which is dark and intriguing. The railing against the greed of late stage capitalism, as they would put it. Just a massive sound, and it seems to be them at their best, or at least from my read of this album it is, and that is in the middle of Blood Sports, which is such a epic opener, big drums to kick it off, bit of rap rock, and then the first sort of cacophonous trumpet or saxophone rather. I never know with the brass instruments, so it's obviously saxophone because trumpet's not as diverse as what we hear here, but no, and that one's like Rain Against the
This album with the trumpet would be funny.
wouldn't be quite as
Different vibe.
the funny is the word. And then the other side, Look Down of Us, you have Southsea. Karl, you can probably best tell us how to pronounce the name there, but Sure. Thank you. So and that one, after 2 sort of massive rock tracks, they sort of really bring the tempo down a notch and focus on some positivity and do it in a way which is quite alluring on the album. But after those first 3, you get a bit of repetition about how the songs are constructed. There's still other very good tracks like Break the Tension, like Trenches, and the closing 10-minute track Reconcile, whereas I think the others have remnants, but as fully fledged songs are not quite there, and it just becomes a little bit messy in that back half of this brief by number of songs, but you know, deep by minutes played on this album, and weirdly for a band who've really struck upon something quite new and different and exciting, engaging, is yeah, they seem to recycle too much by the end of the album, so it feels like they haven't gone into new avenues, and could do more on that front. But having said all that, like, this is an incredibly impressive debut album, one of the best debuts I've listened to all year. A band certainly to, keep up to date with, and intrigued to see where they go next, and one of sort of rock music's sort of bright lights right now. So glad to be down with the kids and bring something to our older ears, which we can appreciate, and frame against some of the bands of yore. so yeah, I don't know who wants to go next on Pain to Power.
You go next, Kylie.
All right. Yeah, I think, same as you, I saw the hype around this record, so was pretty excited to check it out, and I really feel the same way about a lot of it. For me, I'm more into the middle of the record, the Sersha through like Trenches. I think it's fantastic, and for me, Born to Die, like the last couple of minutes of that song was one of my favorite music moments of this year. Just relentlessly heavy, and I think this is like we talked about Biffy Clyro and the corny lyrics. Like, this is a record that is meeting the moment, um, and feels very current and fresh, and unique between the free jazz and the sometimes a little new metal around the edge. It's a cool combo. I'm really into it. But yeah, I think same feedback as you. There's only so much it does. If this was like a really tight EP, I would have been really into it. But I think, like, by the time you're getting into Reconcile, the last 10-minute song there, it is relentless is the word that I kept on coming up with. And as much as I love free jazz and craziness like that, it is the saxophone, after a while just feels very one dimensional. And so, sometimes, like, can we just go like a minute without having a a wailing sax on there and let it breathe a little bit. But yeah, I think and this is a Karl admire, but I'm not sure how much I'm going to be coming back to it, with some of it being some of my favorite moments of music this year. Just a little heavy around the edges on the runtime.
Okay, so positive words, but not one which
Yeah,
you
I enjoy it.
then,
It's good.
yeah. Okay, so Karl, are you gonna be ramping it up, or sticking with a similar assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I think I liked it the most. I'd say I didn't know anything about Maruja heading into this record, which, considering it is a debut, maybe isn't too surprising, I guess. But
But they've apparently been around since like 2014, which
that's crazy.
Long?
yeah, when I was doing the research, yeah, debut 11 years. That it's crazy.
Wow.
Anyway,
Well, yeah, I mean, that kind of explains why there was probably, so much buzz around this album dropping. And it was one of those that, went into it with like no expectation of what I was about to hear. And once it started, it really caught me off guard. The type of music. If it's one of those that if you're not ready for it, it'll really throw you for six. But I think once that initial, startling had passed, and I've grown accustomed to it, which was, and that was the case from like the very first listen. Yeah, I was really digging this record. I think in an age of music where everything sounds like something you've heard before. When something like this comes along that is genuinely, a bit weird, a bit different, I find myself just really captivated by it. I think, you mentioned a load of people there, Andrew, that you could like draw kind of like touch points to. I think the closest comparison I could make was to like Black Midi, with the experimental jazz and some of the mad arrangements that they've got going on here. But I think even with the artist you mentioned and Black Midi, even then I think there's more. Certainly to Black Midi, there's more coherence to what Maruja have put together here with the passionate spoken word monologues. It it just ends up feeling very unique, as well as very impressive. Considering it is a debut, but then if you say they've been going since 2014, Kylie, maybe less impressive now. But you mentioned Look Down on Us. That is just, for me, it's a towering work of a song. It got that, aggressive, quite angry start, then it breaks into that melancholic jazz passage, then it ends in just this almighty crescendo, and those cries of show love right at the end that just kind of like distort in the background. It's just unbelievable. It's one of those tracks where I almost needed like a minute or two. Like the first time I listened to it, I always needed a minute or two just to process what I just heard. Which just really blew me away. Next track, obviously, Shersha, gives you that breather to an extent. Just a really gorgeous track with it's all our differences that make us beautiful refrain. Really kind of the way that song's sung, just really really gorgeous. Born to Die, again, just another colossus of a track, really poignant. At its core, it feels like it's about humility. And I won't go into the saxophone on that song, the horn arrangements throughout, I was really digging them. And the vocals, I must say, for all the kind of instrumentation wizardry that's going on in this album, the vocals are really goosebump inducing at times across this record. Those three tracks are the standouts for me as well. But break the tension, Trenches, a bit more in your face. Then you get is it Zaytoon, which is like that really like ethereal instrumental, and then Reconcile delivers just a suitably epic finale to the whole project, leaving it on like this a bit of an optimistic note at the end. So just it was one of those that I was left kind of in awe of it. I don't think it will be for everyone, but I think it's one that's because it's out there, it's a bit weird, as you say, Kylie. It's a very very intense, very relentless 50-minute listen. But for me personally, shout out to you, Andrew, for picking this one, as it's one of those that even with all the hype and buzz around it, I might have missed it otherwise. And just reaffirmed, why I love doing this podcast each month is the great recommendations that come out of it. And fantastic album for me.
Yeah, I'll pass that praise to the Ute of today for giving them the
Teen kids
yeah.
waiting for 10 years for this debut.
I think it was actually like
Seven.
being they were on the front cover of the NME, which is still a thing these days. And the NME is still somehow, I don't know, it seems to be, as an online production, coming back quite nicely and being a good place to find new artists who younger listeners are enjoying and potentially.
And they can talk
We
about
might
Oasis again.
Yes, don't know if we'll ever do them on the pod. So they 3 albums in and it's starting to simmer a bit now, I would say, after a tepid start. So our 4th album is All That Is Over by Sprints.
And we've lost it all, dropped our pennies in the well, but
This was our poll winner. So thanks to everyone who voted. And yeah, it was my pick for the poll. So yeah, gonna do my last intro to an album here. Yeah, Sprint All That Is Over. So it doesn't seem too long ago that they kind of came out of the blocks with Letter to Self, beginning of 2024, which I think we were fairly united in, at least as an opening listen. The hype was unavoidable at the time, and it seems overly gracious of the effort, which actually grew on me a lot during last year, but I think it just put it on too high a pedestal to be listening to it for the first time, and based on what I was reading versus what I was hearing, it was never going to meet the expectations which the words were giving it. But it was a very, very strong debut album from the Dublin band, led by Karl Chubb, who has some German ancestry and sort of brought that into a bit of the lyricism of their debut effort. So yeah, not too long after that, they returned with their second album, and subsequently we've sort of read, and it answers a few questions for me, that they replaced the guitarist from the first album to the second album, and that I think is one of the key things to note, at least from a instrumentation point of view with this record, because I feel one of the letdowns of the first record was that the riffs themselves were a bit generic. It didn't really do anything on that front. What they did do very well was atmosphere, and really creating something which was quite sort of claustrophobic and dark. Whereas here, I really feel that the guitar work has really stepped up a notch with their new guitarist, and really, for me, this is kind of starting to meet that high praise which was showered on them with the first record. Yeah, I mean, I might be the one who's given the biggest props for All That Is Over, but and I was quite surprised at how much I enjoyed this one. It maybe doesn't begin on the most amazing note. Abandon doesn't massively do it for me. To the Bone is where you get a good track, but it's, from Descartes onwards, for me it doesn't really let up, and I just love the lyric "I speak, therefore I understand," in kind of a takedown of many of our social commentators in the current climate. So I in one lyric, I think they've just, and probably it's probably going to be hard to beat this year for lyric of the year. We talked about with Maruja, what I think is the song of the year with Look Down on Us, but yeah, that one lyric I think encapsulates a lot of also the kind of points being made right now, which are very topical and sum up how probably a lot of us are feeling about the current climate. So yeah, I just think some of the themes and the lyrical work here is very strong. On Need, I find the guitar is quite indebted to era Vulgaris, era Queens of the Stone Age. It really, and that already tells you that they're going in a bit more of a different place with the guitar work on what they're doing here. And then other highlights, just in addition to Descartes, for me, are Beg, Pieces, Better, Coming Alive, Desire. I mean, those last 4 tracks for me really just, if they'd started on that point, then this could be an album I would consider a album of the year contender. As it is, I think this is an exceptionally strong follow-up to a very solid debut. And yeah, I just feel that they're really hitting their straps now, and yeah, just sky seems to be the limit for this band, and I'm now falling into the trap of lavishing them with praise. So maybe if you absorb enough of it, you end up reflecting it. but There we go. Really, really strong effort for me. So yeah. What did you make of All That Is Over? I'll go with you, Karl.
Yeah, I mean, I was very glad this landed on the slate this month. I think, yeah, when the debut, as you say, when the debut came out, we all had the same feeling. It was great. Maybe not the revelation that the music press, certainly in January, probably because it was the first thing that they listened to that year, were baiting it out to me. But yeah, definitely had enough about them to show that they were, following the footsteps of, Fontaine's DC, Murder Capital with like, what they were delivering. Um, and yeah, like you, Andrew, once the hype died down, managed to see them live. I did grow to really enjoy that record, and I think All That Is Over basically continues that strong start to their career. I think it does it maybe, although like you say, the guitar work does seem a step up. I think it doesn't necessarily push their sound forward massively. I think for me, it's a sophomore record that does feel more of the same. But I think with it coming so soon after the debut, and obviously people still getting into them, I don't think that's a bad thing at this point in their career. And yeah, I'm with you. I think it's another strong effort. It's filled with that ferocious energy, that buzz of guitars that runs right through the record. Carla's, passionate, fierce vocals. Really good pacing to the album as well. It starts off, quite ominously, I'd say, with Abandon, and then, like you say, with To the Bone, that's where it really kind of explodes. Um, in the back half of that track, that's really where it comes alive. Yeah, like you say, it's after that, it's off to the races. Descartes, Need, Bear Rage, just really like full throttle punk tracks. And then in the back half, Something's Gonna Happen, I'd say it's probably one of my favorites. Just really comes in and brings this like a second wind to the album. I think it comes along at the right point in the track list. And it's one of those with the anticipation of those guitars. Yeah, it just builds you back up just as you need it. And then yeah, right at the end, I'd say they save a couple of the best tracks for last. Better, I think, stands out here because it is the softest track on the record. Some really nice harmonies on that song with Carla, and I couldn't work out which of the vocalists, either Sam or Zach, I think it is, sort of playing off each other. Just yeah, really anthemic, really soaring. Um, and then yeah, Desire at the end, just wonderful. Got the Spanish guitars going on. Um, you can almost paint a picture in your head when you listen to that sort of people doing the tango as it plays out. I think when I was listening to it, I was picturing not quite the tango, but Pulp Fiction, or another Tarantino movie. Like I could see it soundtracking that. And yeah, the horns then come in, and then it just builds, and it culminates in this mighty eruption, and it's kind of like that. Yeah, that real jaw-dropping finale, I think, to the record. So yeah, I'm with you, Andrew. I'm not sure how high I'm going to put it in my year-end list, but for me right now, a pretty great second album, and I think pound for pound, yeah, edges the debut album for me as well.
And I think as well, we've spoken about the British Isles being covered here, but this is incredibly rocky. we have a little bit of a respite with Cate Le Bon up these 5 albums, but yeah, it's a bit harsh on the ears. September was so good harshness for you, Kylie, with All That Is Over.
Yeah, I think you guys came around more on the debut than I did. Just I thought that was a very overhyped record, and All That Is Over, the second record, I really enjoyed this, and I think there is that guitar change that helped out, but for me, I think they've done a really good job of it's the 90s formula of quiet verses, loud choruses, and I can't resist that. And I think that brings a little more diversity to the record than their first one. And I'm funny enough, kind of when they have those moments that things slow down with Better is my favorite track on here because it's just something completely different from the rest of the album. And Desire, just the back half of this record is really great. It's it's when they're balls to the wall that um we've talked about this many times, but love Emil and the Sniffers, but a lot of the stuff that has come along with that, thinking back to a couple of months ago, like Lambrini Girls, um, when it's not them, I'm just kind of like, yeah, we've heard this a lot lately, and I think that's for me what holds this album back from being really good, which is probably, Spritz fans, that's what they're there for. So just taking a different approach to it. When they let up, when they let the atmosphere kind of build, I think it's a greater success. And yeah, this, you know, I think rarely, the sophomore record is tough and to differentiate yourself and not repeat it. And I think they did a good job of exploring some new territory while, tying it to what the base of their sound is. So yeah, I was very happy with this record, very pleasantly surprised.
There we go. And I don't think it did arrive with the same level of hype. So lesson there.
I think it's got the same reviews though. Like it's another critically acclaimed, you know.
Oh,
that
maybe I didn't
loved
read
it.
them this time.
Well, we knew that they're probably hyping it up a bit.
Like,
Ahead.
we'll just knock that down. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. So yeah, for our last kind of rocky moment out of the five, our final album is Antidepressants by Suede.
I want to be dancing with the Europeans. Sing it. Dancing with the Europeans.
And this was your pick, Karl.
It was indeed, yeah. So I mean, went with Suede this month. A band I've really gotten into since their comeback record, Bloodsports, which is crazily, when I looked at it, over a decade ago now, which doesn't feel like it was over a decade ago. But yeah, really have been on this ever since that record, just been on this hot streak of releases in that time. Night Thoughts, which came after Bloodsports, just this wonderfully cinematic visual album, which is probably still my favorite of theirs of this kind of recent run. Although Autofiction from a couple of years back runs it close as well. That's another record, filled with later career highlights from Suede. And yeah, I think Antidepressants just about continues that streak. I think compared to some of the other albums in this, certainly in the second run, it maybe feels maybe slightly less ambitious and creative. It sounds more like a follow-on from Autofiction, I would say, in the same way that when they released the Blue Hour, that almost felt like a follow-on from Night Thoughts. It's carrying the same aesthetic, with the black and white covers and the sonic DNA to the songs as well. So yeah, naturally I'm going to compare it to that record, and I think for me it doesn't quite hit the level of Autofiction, or at least it hasn't yet, with the amount I've spun it. But that said, I mean, there's still some great tracks here. I imagine really come across as well in the live set that I'm sure you'll touch on as well, Andrew. But Disintegrate comes storming out the gates, just got that classic Suede sound going on. Brett Anderson's wonderful cooing on Dancing with the Europeans. Just an absolute anthem. Then you got the title track Arrives, and has a bit more of a punk edge about it. The Sound of Summer. Then you get those with like wonderful atmospheric guitars that really like fill your headphones. And then my favorite section is probably the final three tracks, Trance State, June Rain, and Life is Endless, Life is a Moment. Those 3 tracks, I think, just capture everything I love about Suede's music. Really brooding in parts, really dramatic in parts. Brett's voice again just sounding immaculate amidst like the swirl of guitars. Um, yeah, just a really great finale to the record. And yeah, I'd say those are the high points. There are a few moments that feel like filler or just more of the same. The ones I've kind of pulled out here is Sweet Kid, Broken Music for Broken People. Um, yeah, I think the clue is in the name there. Maybe a bit like Biffy Clyro. Feels a bit like a cliche at times. Comes across that way. Um, and Criminal Ways as well, I think, was another one that didn't quite grab me. But I think it's one of those that kind of starts strong, levels out in the middle, and then brings it back at the end once they, once they mix things up again. So yeah, overall, I think it's solid enough. Maybe not one of their strongest in this second run, and there's definitely some good additions to the live set on there. And yeah, I'm not a misfire by any means. But yeah, it's probably an album I'd say I'm gonna dip into rather than play front to back. But yeah, a good addition to their discography, but maybe not for me a great one, I would say.
Okay, so then Kylie, what did you make of Antidepressants? You a Suede fan going into this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny thing that I remember listening to the first couple of records when I was, getting into the British scene back in the mid to late '90s and really enjoying them. And for some reason, I've always confused them with Pulp, even though I know the
Easily done.
difference. Yeah, um, and loved those first couple of records, and then I'm ashamed to say that I have not listened to any of the comeback records. And it was funny when I was going to pull up this record, I had no idea in the meantime that in the US they're called the London Suede, which is yeah. And so I finally ended up searching for antidepressants and there was the London Suede. So
It's just
yeah, it's like a trademark thing.
yeah.
There's a I'm not even familiar with the US band Suede. It's funny when that happens. Um, But yeah, so without having the reference to the comeback records, I absolutely loved this album, and it was my, great surprise of the month. For me, I do agree that broken music for broken people doesn't quite work out so well, but as close to no skips as that we're gonna get on an album this month. Uh, and yeah, just same notes like Brett Anderson, his vocals just completely blow me away on this record that he's still just belting like that. And kind of in that post-punk atmosphere, it reminded me a lot of that last Cure, comeback record that we reviewed and just kind of getting into that vibe and staying there, really enjoying it. Uh Carl, I'm exactly as you too, though, with Trance State, June Rain, and Life is Endless, Life is a Moment. I think that's the closing of this record is the best part on a very good record. And the note that I had on Life is Endless, Life is a Moment, I know it's like a dirty word, but it reminded me a lot of very old U2, like October, before they, you know, popped everything out back when they were just more low gritty post punk, and just hadn't thought of that record in a long time. So that's what made me think of. But yeah, I was very, very happy with this. Enjoyed it.
So yeah, two thumbs up, a third thumb up from me as well. Yeah, I've been enjoying kind of the press they've been doing around this as well. So, it's definitely linked to autofiction, as you say, it's kind of from the look of the two albums. And Brett was saying that was autofiction was their punk album and this is their post-punk album, so with Antidepressants. And Kylie, you're referencing post-punk kind of vibe with this. So they're doing what they're saying on that front. And the other point, although again from what you were saying, Kylie, it kind of reminds me of someone who's also doing this, but they were saying, look, we're the only ones from that era. Everyone else is going back to their old tracks. We're still being relevant. Well, Pulp this year have brought out an album which is for me fantastic. Yeah, they're not the only ones, but certainly one of the most prominent who is still going and still being relevant since they've came back, as you say, 10 years ago, Karl. So
I'm
yeah,
sure, I'm sure Damon might have a word as well. Like although he's not doing it with Blair, he's
well, oh yeah, I mean,
Still-
as a
yeah.
as I think, because I think if we were to look back at the life of Life of Darren, we weren't blown away by it, but certain
And the
parts
listen to it since.
were. So
I forgot you existed.
Yeah.
there were moments.
Well, you're looking forward to the new Gorillaz record.
Yeah.
I quite like the last one. Anyway, so yeah, I think they're kind of bang on. Like it might be seen as quite arrogant, to sort of say we're still relevant, whereas our peers are just sort of resting on the laurels of what they did 30 years ago. But it's apt, and yeah, I to my shame have not done the other comeback records apart from Autofiction, which I absolutely loved 3 years ago. But yeah, I kind of going into it, I was unsure whether it would meet that standard. Disintegrate initially didn't wow me. Trance State similarly, whereas Dancing with the Europeans is I've just loved from minute one, and one of my tracks of the year. Just think it's absolutely fantastic. And those two other singles I've mentioned have just really grown on me a hell of a lot, and it's so solid. So this is an album which has surpassed those expectations of which I had for it, which I thought it might be lower than sort of Autofiction. I think it's at least very close because I really rate that one. I'd probably say the first four, you talk about the last three tracks, which I think are great. But the first four are the ones which is the run I enjoy the most in this album. Disintegrate just comes in, really big, setting their stall out. Desolation as an art, hesitation as a creed. I mean, Kylie, you mentioned Songs for a Lost World and sort of so sinking into a bit of a Cure goth imagery in a lot of the lyrics they bring here. Dancing with the Europeans is just such an anthem. Slightly, even though I absolutely love it, it's almost slightly corny in its embrace of pro-European sentiment, but it's almost like taboo, at least in the UK, to hear someone saying such things, and like it's nice, at least to me, to hear that there's some sanity and yeah, that not everything is headed one way to this post-Brexit UK which we live in. Antidepressants, yeah, just keeps that real gritty energy going, at least from what Disintegrate brings at the start of the album. And then Sweet Kid I really enjoy. He mentioned at the gig it was for his son who decided that he didn't actually attend. he did a song for his wife, very lovely, heartfelt, and then he was like and the next track is for my son who's decided not to attend tonight. He didn't say he wasn't like, it wasn't a barb, but it was just quite funny. But I don't know if that made that song resonate more with me on the album than it might have done without like seeing it live and kind of really getting that connection, which is you don't have to look too far to get that connection, by the way, of course, but with lyrics, and if my body belongs to the worms, oh well, my blood still belongs in your veins. I mean, my word, they are. He is someone who just puts absolutely everything into his art, and is still doing it. Is still passionate, and is supported by very strong band. And I do find I've got a lot of love for the Britpop era, and the hits from Suede for me are always probably the top out of a very, very strong bunch of songs from various artists. And it's just so good to see them 30 odd years on, just producing relevant, hard hitting music, albeit a different flavor, and sort of it echoes where they are in their lives, and probably meets more my older mind, I suppose. In that sense, it feels like generationally like apt, and Six Music Dad vibes. But this is a band I love, and yeah, just really pleased that they're still making music like this, which blows some of the younger generation out of the water. So there we go. We've reached the end of our September review, and we go on to the verdict. I kind of mentioned we went from a tepid start. It was simmering halfway through, and like that is literally how I voted. Every single album, it's gone up. So I'm gonna say that it was Biffy 5 for me, Cate Le Bon 4th, Maruja 3rd, Sprint 2nd, and Suede 1st. Which I don't think has ever happened, that we've had such a chronological voting track.
Alphabetical ranking.
Yes.
So yeah, straight out the tracks there, and yeah, let's go for your 5 to 1. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next because I think mine might be quite different. So,
Okay,
well, I'd say quite different, not that different. Biffy Clyro in
5 is fairly obvious, but yeah.
then I've got Cate Le Bon in 4th.
Yeah.
I've got Suede in 3rd. Sprints at 2, and then Maruja at 1.
There we go. Right. All on you, Kylie.
Biffy 5,
No.
Cate Le Bon 4th, Sprint's 3rd, Maruja's 2nd, and the London Suede 1st.
So going into that, Maruja, Sprints, and Suede were level pegging, and by virtue of putting them top of your list, Kylie, it is Suede who we are congratulating for winning our album of the month for September 2025. So still got it in 2025, and you can keep an eye out for our October episode, where we'll be reviewing the latest releases by Creeper, Daniel Avery, Florence the Machine, The Last Dinner Party, and Zaho de Zagazan. Quite a creepy, spooky episode ahead, and you can stay up to date with what we're up to by following 5 to 9 on Instagram and YouTube. Keep up to date with New Music Central via @Karl Blakesley via Instagram and Threads, and Mama Mañana Records via @Mama Mañana Records on Instagram. Thanks for listening.